Setting up. Mm. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Forced Migration in the Arts. Uh, Forced Migration in the Arts is a network that brings together people with lived experience of forced migration, refugee and non-refugee artists, activists, academics, and art spaces. And we host monthly conversations looking at what is happening at the intersection where forced migration and the arts meet. And when we talk about forced migration, what we are also talking about is we are talking about people who are being forced to leave their homes and in some cases, countries to seek refuge elsewhere. We're talking about refugees. We're also talking about migrants. We're talking about, in some cases, internally displaced people. But for this evening's conversation, we are going to focus on Palestine. And as we do that, I think it's also important that we remember that the Palestinian refugee situation is the most protracted in the world, and its roots go back to the current, to the origins of the current genocide that is taking place in Gaza right now as we hold this event as part of this year's Refugee Day commemorations. With this as my introduction, I hand over to Dr. Maida About, who is going to share with us some thoughts about how art can help us understand where we are currently in Palestine. Over to you, Maida.
Hello, my name is Mayada Aboud. I am an artist and an academic. Was born in Palestine in a city called Sfamer between Haifa and Nazareth. I carry an Israeli passport and also a British passport. For me, that's very relevant because it reflects on my background as an artist and also on the political aspect of my identity. I have structured my lecture today to stem from the personal to the political. So if you allow me to start by introducing how did my journey start, and then link it to healing and therapy and working with others as group sessions reflecting on art and activism, and then linking the whole scenario and my personal background to the political situation in Palestine and specifically the genocide that is happening at the moment. Is that okay with you? Okay. So I have prepared a PowerPoint and I will share my screen. So I would like to read my artistic statement and then I will go on further. I'm not even a body, I'm a voice. the loud voice of the bell I once placed between my legs many lives ago during the first performance ever at Haifa University. The voice of a phallus, controlled by the movement of my gentle woman's limbs. In spite of what tradition dictates, I survive. My vagina is no weaker than a phallus. I'm the uncomfortable, disturbing ringing that you can't hide from or ignore. You can lock a woman in a room. You can place a citizen under arrest. You can trap a body behind bars. But sound is unstoppable, freely carried by the air. No matter how hard life was or might become, this was the only definition I would even accept: a voice. Having no words to describe my pain, I had to use my body as means of rebellion against patriarchy. My culture views women as virginal, gentle, emotional, accepting, compassionate, loyal, sensitive, devoted, caring, traditional, faithful, and committed. In spite of this cultural tendency, I dreamed of becoming something totally different: assertive, athletic, competitive, dominant, forceful, independent, unique, and strong. I wanted to take on no roles but my own, to be the author, activator, director, and designer of my life. I chose performance as my means of challenging the patriarchy through the language of the body, by exploring gender and sexuality embedded in the female body and rebelling against oppression, apartheid, and religious forces. I wanted and still want to inscribe my body in order to speak, using this art as a stage across which I could express my frustration, anger, and as a platform for my rebellion against the traditional view of women in general. So this was the reason why I started my journey as a performance artist in specific. When I wanted to start my artistic journey, my dad did not accept this, and as a counter reaction, I went and studied criminology and finished this degree, and then went back to my parents and said, I really want to finish my studies in art. And that was very tough back then. I'm talking in 99, which was the Oslo period, by the way. I finished then. I forced my family to accept my studies. I started doing my art degree, and it was in the Israeli state. It was a very complicated period for me as a student and as an artist, because back then I came from a background where politics were not, my family was not really like aware of the political surroundings, and I had to research and explore my political identity on my own. Haifa University in specific has really forced me to, one second, I lost the, has forced me to like work and discover my identity. We were a few Arab students in the art faculty, and for me it was kind of a different culture on the other spectrum of what I was brought up to be as an Arab woman. So all of a sudden I'm in this European society experiencing myself to the full. But then something was still not fitting properly. I started reading more and more into the culture and the history of Palestine and colonialism and apartheid. And then I started realizing that also political art in general at Haifa University was not really accepted. And any political project back then would be tackled in a like very different way from the norm. So that brought me more and more to kind of like address and work on the edges of politics and religious structures and address all those taboos and limitations that I wasn't able to address. I will show some of the work I've done. So we kind of have this was the first ever performance I did at Haifa University. Back then I was facing my divorce. I was also born Catholic, so divorce was not allowed at that time. And I was almost the second divorce case in the entire city. It was very hard to get the divorce back then. I started the art studies with painting, but then some different forces were in me and wanted to break through, and I wanted to express myself using different means. And then I discovered performance. This bell piece, it's called The Unhappy Vagina. And that's a live act. Usually I either go into the gallery space and place the bell as a phallus and ring it out loud facing the male spectators in the space. This specific work has become like a future stamp for me as an artist, because that was one of the pieces where I kind of adopt like a non-binary or a different sex, and also face it in the face of the spectators. And I kind of felt that I had a different kind of power. Then I will mute it and let it play and then talk over it. This was another piece where I took the previous work done by me as a solo performance and then put a call out in Berlin for a piece that was supposed to be done at Alexanderplatz in Berlin. And it was Corona back then, so it was very like tricky to get people to participate. And I had only 3 people, so I ended up joining the group. And we rang the bells in public. The police obviously came in, but all in all, it was a live performance and we recorded it for the camera. This was another piece of art where I usually depict the Christian symbols out of the Bible and work around them. I work around femininity, sexuality, gender issues, Adam and Eve. So this piece, I usually hold 12 kilos fish for 1 hour until my body collapses or until I no longer am able to hold it. This piece for me reflects on power structures, the ways women are usually viewed, and also like all these expected norms and codes of behavior and limitations we are supposed to carry. And I called it Ascension. That's where I kind of ascend beyond the acceptable patterns, cultural and social patterns. This was another piece of art where I lay naked with 3 boxes of apples. Sorry, I don't have the final slide, but I sit and then I start eating apples until I throw up on stage. For me, this work is also like what you start seeing is not what you end up having at the end. So it kind of moves on the spectrum from being sexual and seductive into being something that you don't actually want to see. This is another work where I construct a chandelier of apples and place a dining table for 6 participants for the 6 days of creation. And then I start peeling the apples and then dip the apple in an artificial red color. And then once each plate has 6 apples, I strip naked and glue the apple peels onto my breast and my vagina. And then at the end, once I glued most of the apple peel, I place the bell as well and ring it out loud. Second, my screen is stuck. This was another piece. This work I did at Sheffield University. I have a big projection of me sitting in university locker waxing, and from the 2 sides of the gallery space, there is one white bucket full with apples, and there is a chain connecting the 2 sides of the gallery, and I tie myself like an animal across this metal chain, and then start dropping 1 apple each time in the black bucket until the blood level rises and starts dripping in this bathtub. And that's when I strip naked and brush my body with a metal brush until bleeding. This, again, most of my work is monotonic and also durational. So some pieces are in the duration of 1 hour to 3 or 4 hours. For example, this piece took me 3 hours almost to finish. The idea is mainly to test my entire box of feelings. Like during one performance, my emotion moves from wanting to cry to being nonchalant to wanting to laugh to not being able to do it anymore. And throughout those performances, I've realized that that was a mechanism for me to kind of like let go of my fear, of my frustration, of my political tension, of everything I was carrying in me and in my body. And this gallery space at the end became a home for me. And that's a concept that I was never able to find as a Palestinian woman, because we do carry onto our bodies those scars, cultural scars, religious scars, political scars. That's another slide of me picking the apples. I usually work also around this red bucket or rubbish bin covering my face. It's all about degrading myself as a human being and wanting to be something non-human, but at the same time of its own character and personality. So the same visuals that might appear as degrading also give me on the other side the strength to carry on or perform this monotonic action. From that type of performances, I moved into working in public at this point. So we started having secret dinner parties or secret dinner society, where I started hosting dinner for 30 people, and it would serve 3 course meals. And along with those 3 course meals, I changed the structure of the performance. So this is a circular table, and I sit in the middle under blood dripping, while the people are usually like sucking oysters or eating seafood. So within this performance approach, my method has taught me that like to take my political tension and all the scars I've carried and to just let it like unleash the beast inside me. And that has really helped me drastically, like to gain more self-confidence, to heal my pain, and also as a therapeutic approach to everything I've been going through, like politically, socially, culturally. I will show another video. I will show. This is another piece where I hold it's a diptych, and I hold this fish for the duration of 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, while on the other screen, I also sit under blood dripping, and I carry on doing it until I'm no longer able to do so. And usually this type of performance is really hard to record for the camera because of the monotonic action and the durational aspect of it, there is no change of the theme. Like usually it's like a frozen image that just carries on and on and on. So most of the time I also just record it for documentation, but not for people to see the work itself, because I would rather have people watching live than just seeing the video of the work. Oops, sorry. At that point, I have already left the Israeli state to live in England, and I have started my master's and at Coventry University, and started touring with my art. So I did this piece in this specific piece in Berlin. Oh, and in this piece of art, I asked people to stone me with tomatoes, and I did this specific work in Palestine, in England, and in Germany. And this is kind of one of the pieces where really the politics of the space and the characteristics of the people watching come to life, because, for example, there is a much different approach when I ask people to stone me in England, that the way I saw it, than when I asked them to stone me in Berlin. In Berlin, people were mostly scared to do the act, and we ended up doing the act as a symbolic act at the end, but not like in Coventry, Manchester, or London. People were daring more to do or perform the act. Okay, here I would like to make a big turn. At this point, that was the turning point where I really started seeing my art as political activism. I was addressed by Dominique, Belgian director of a company called Victoria Deluxe, and he asked me to collaborate with him and direct this theater play, which we called later The Place to Be. In this theater play, we toured different gyms in Ghent. And we put a call out, and we also addressed people in the gym itself within the period of 8 months. What's the motivation, or what's the reason behind them addressing or using the gym? We started by one-to-one conversations with each participant, and then we moved to the space, performing as a group. We gave them tasks to perform. And then at the end, we worked with them and structured the theater play, which ended up being, it was around 32 people, and we structured the play where we divided the group into halves. It was performed in the gym itself, and we kind of arranged the theater play to look like a coliseum, where the performance act is performed on the ground floor and the people are watching on the first floor. The theater play was divided into two themes. One is endurance-based theme, where people train intensely, beginning till end of the play. And the second part was artistic drops, where people, for example, scroll with the metal chains on the floor, other people screaming throughout the play, other people dancing or performing some acts. I will play the trailer, and then I will talk a little bit more. Oh, I don't know, sorry for that. It keeps jumping. So this theater play has made me really connect with people from different backgrounds, especially migrants. We had Syrian people, Turkish people, and also white people. But within my practice, I like to kind of have a positive discrimination tool where I address people of color in a very different way and give them the stage more than white people, because I personally believe that the layers of that onion, people of color have much more work to peel and to work on, and much more trauma and much more pain and much more scars. whether we're talking politically, religiously, culturally, and various aspects of identities. This is another slide from the play and the structure of the gym. This is, for example, one participant who scrolled on the floor with metal chains throughout the 1 hour of performance. So we had people doing theatrical aspects and others training in the gym. And then from that point, I also wanted to dig much more into this this healing and therapy sessions with people. So I was asked by Uyun, it's an artistic space based in Berlin, to direct a theater play about, we called it Secret Bodies, Forbidden Stories. And it was within the Embodied Arts Festival in Berlin. And I auditioned around 12 women, and we talked about abuse, menstruation, whether it's physical, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. I had one-to-one auditions and asked them very private questions about secretive sides of their femininity and gender. How was it to describe their experience growing up as a woman in the culture where they're coming from? This experience has revealed to me loads of common grounds for women from the various cultures. Each one of them had something to talk about, and each one of them had a very hard story to reflect on. This was one of the most touching experiences for me as an artist, because it even made me realize that despite the fact that menstruation is a very natural feminine thing to have monthly, on a monthly basis, we refrain so much from talking about it and from discussing it. And whether we are suffering or having pain, we are always asked not to talk and to keep it as a secret aspect. That's why I called it Forbidden Stories. And this was this performance was done throughout the pandemic, and when we really aimed at performing it live, we ended up shooting for the camera, because even throughout the 6 months of this project, it was very difficult for us to meet constantly. So instead of meeting as a group, we had to meet privately, and each time we had to have a corona test, and it was like full of obstacles. Now I will move to one of the most political performances or projects I worked on, which leads me, this is the one before the last, which I wanted to show for today. And this project I've directed and worked, collaborated with Dr. Ben Spatz from Huddersfield University. Ben comes from a Jewish background, and I am a Palestinian artist. And when we met and we started talking and debating on what Jewishness and Palestinian identity and Zionism and what does it mean to be Israeli versus being Palestinian living in Israel, we really came. Ben was like extremely accepting, one of the most distinctive people I know, basically, and it's one of the few people I ended up keeping after all this genocide and this whole horrible experience of what has been happening lately, because I had loads of Jewish friends, which I believed that they were pro-Palestinian and anti-Zionists. And the pandemic has revealed loads of aspects which I really found it hard to confront, but I had to, because I do believe in my art and I do believe in my identity as a Palestinian woman. And the more I spoke to those people, the more I had to face like all those layers of hatred and discrimination and supremacy, which I was avoiding living under the Israeli apartheid state. And that was one of the reasons for me leaving the country to begin with, because it was very hard for me as an artist and as a woman to express myself. At one point, I had the intentional decision, and I had to take this decision of not accepting funds from Israeli institutions. And that was very hard for me. And it was very tough for me to carry on working independently. And having taken this decision, really, like, I really rejected loads of projects inside Israel. And it was tough period and tough decision for me. But now, as I reflect on my decisions, I have no regrets. And it makes me even much more proud of myself as an artist. Because despite the fact, despite having really hardship to survive and as a freelancer, I really had to take other projects or work in different fields and fund myself as an independent artist and keep my message clear and travel and take my path the way I wanted to take it. I will show only the beginning and at the end. Like, most of my videos are a bit monotonic and long, so I would rather just show parts of it. And this was exhibited in Birmingham.
The final presentation in the Radical Practices, Open Mic Provocations, is performed by Ben Spatz, and it's been directed by Mayada Aboud. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Mayada. And the piece is called Behold How Good.
So just to give you a background, in the background of the performance, you see the cars or the traffic being held for the 1 minute silence for the Holocaust survivors. As an Arab student, while living in Israel, this was one of the toughest moments for me as a Palestinian, and I believe for most Palestinians who really lived and studied in the Israeli institutions. We frequently had to run to the toilet because it was very tough to have our pain not acknowledged under any situation, and then we are forced to share the pain. I mean, I have no problems with sharing pain from survivors or of the survivors of the Holocaust, and that's not the issue. The issue is that we were highly disrespected when we choose to leave the room or not to take part in this as a political act also. Okay, this is a long one, so I will not show it all, but it's online. Oh. This is the last piece of work I want to reflect on, and it's called Tears of Tar. This project we performed on the Nakba Memorial demonstration. We opened the demonstration with our public act. It was a collaborative project with Paril Kalkili. She's the movie director. And it was 20 participants. We had sessions, therapeutic sessions where we met the participants. It was mainly addressed for Palestinian people or people who identify with the Palestinian struggle and feel really bad about the genocide and everything that has been happening after the 7th of October. The main of the performance or the public act was to have two sessions. One session where we share the pain, cry together, and have a solidarity, and this mourning ritual where we mourn the death, and each participant talks in a way about their private experience with this genocide, ongoing genocide. And we structured this play, and I will show it and carry on talking afterwards.
ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النادل فيا حكم النادل فيا حكم النادل فيا والشتا رواني والصيف لما أتى ولع من نيراني بيضل عمري الفتى ندري للحرية ويما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النادل فيا يا ليل طاح النادى يشهد على جراحي يا ليل طاح النادى يشهد على جراحي وانسى الجيش العدا من كل النواحي والليل شاف الردى عم يتعلم فيا يما وين الهوى أزايف حواليك قليل يرموها بعيد على الجبهة عليك ليكي 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 يا ستي ليكي ليكي أزايف حواليك قليل يرموها بعيد على الجبهة عليك ليكي 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 يا ستي يا ست الكل أنا لشلح يجريك الفل يا ستي يا ست الكل أنا لشلح يجريك الفل.
I will finish by this quote by Muna Hatoum. If the ordinary and the everyday is portrayed as threatening, it throws a doubt on your assumption about the world around you. You begin to have to ask yourself questions about power relationships, about who is oppressing or manipulating whom. Muna Hatoum. I will stop sharing and then I am now open to answer questions and maybe also any question that addresses the political background or the situation in Gaza and its relationship to my art, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Maida. Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot. It's difficult to know where to begin, but maybe I'll start with a broad question and ask, what would you say? What do you see as your role as an artist?
My role?
Yeah.
I would say poking and triggering and challenging perceptions and common grounds of or like codes of behavior or upbringings, stepping out of the acceptable norms and codes of behavior, cultural patterns. And I think that was the main reason for my activism and my art in general, because I I wasn't privileged to choose art as a tool to work with, and I had to fight to be able to voice myself as an artist. Up till now, my family has no idea about the naked side of the art that I've been dealing with, because that's a very like a tabooed side of art in general in the Middle East. I had to kind of choose where do I want to stand? What is my fight and what is my message, whether on a personal level or also and political level. When I started my artistic journey, politics was not the main reason, but I ended up understanding that the personal is political at the end of the day. Because even religious structures and culture are mainly affected by politics. And the more I realized and understood that, the more I wanted to challenge and trigger those perceptions. And the harder it became. I think that's it.
Yeah. So, okay. So what would you say is the end that you are working towards? What would you like to see happen?
I think I lost connection and hope for academia in general, and mainly academia that is, as a Palestinian woman, that addresses my background and with all the censorship and the limitation and the which are forced and on the academia in that aspect, because there is a lot being censored out there. I know that the main factor for change at the moment is those public activism and activism in general. And that's where I want to head from this point onward. Because for me, the main target at the moment is to be able to help others to find a way to heal, similar to the way I found for myself as a therapy. Because choosing endurance art for me personally was following a very traumatic experience. And with this genocide that is happening in Palestine, I think this method, especially using pain to heal pain, and that's the thing I developed within my doctorate and after. And it steps out of the traditional concept of therapy when people talk to someone and use the verbal language to describe everything they've gone through. I think this method steps beyond. It really forces the participant to use the body as language. We don't talk. Also, when we use it in the workshops, everybody writes about their trauma, but they don't write about it personally. So we have like 10 or 8 cards with different really problems and traumas and scars, but we don't really know who has written this card. So the pain stays in this surface and floats everywhere, but we don't connect it to an individual. And this method makes it really easier for people coming from troubled background or a traumatic experience to open themselves out. And also they feel less penetrated. And it makes it easier for them to expose and reveal even more. So I think, going back to your question, that's where I really find myself the most at the moment. And I think this is really highly needed, especially for people coming from the same background like myself.
But just okay. Well, I understand aspects of what you're saying about using pain to heal pain, but in the context of the genocide that Israel is occasioning on Palestinians right now, what does that mean?
I will take as an example the last performance, which is Tears of Tar, that we performed in the Nakba commemoration day. The performance addressed the mourning of people coming from this background, and it allowed them to speak and cry together and mourn the death and talk about it and shout and scream their pain. So I think this is what we actually need at the moment, because I think there is no need to shout the pain outside or to address the outside world, because we have seen the media and we have seen all the news agencies and everything is biased out there. So as an artist, I think my main concern is to deal with people who have lost someone in the genocide in Gaza, who have been exposed to all of this. I myself have gone through 3 different wars. I was stuck in the Israeli apartheid state twice throughout my life. I experienced bombs falling nearby and getting stuck and having to go out with last flights back to England or whatever. And especially for me, it's always even weirder than people living there, because when you decide to live outside of Palestine and then you revisit this place, you automatically connect to all that trauma that you've passed throughout your entire life. And when this keeps happening, it refreshes all the scars, it refreshes the pain. And I think also the illusion of the West and being in the West and not experiencing similar effects and similar scars, I also fell under this trap. I don't think there is much difference. Like, even one of the reasons why I got the British passport was in order to give up on my Israeli one and have the freedom to be and live in Europe. And that's also an illusion, because my Palestinian identity is still everywhere. And even as a British citizen, my Palestinian identity also keeps floating all the time. So it made me realize that regardless of the place or where I am at any time in my life, I really have to take this on board. So it doesn't matter where am I based at certain time, I still carry this with me.
But for me, the kind of world that I would like to live in is one where the kind of pain that Palestinian people are going through right now does not take place. How do we get there?
First of all, by humanizing Palestinians, because I think the Palestinians are the new blacks in a way. We're being dehumanized. Our life is not important anymore. I think the main key for moving on is trying not to hate, because I personally have had hate at some points, but I constantly try to suppress it and be hopeful and see the other regardless of their religion. And like, political stands are really important for me, but I would try not to see, for example, like also with the Zionism or anti-Semitic approach, that's what's being really like debated on, and all this game between anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist being called anti-Semitic. I don't know. I have no answer. I think where do I want to be? Of course, I don't want to see anybody dead, and I don't want to see kids being killed, and I don't want to see, and it's not only with Palestinians. We have in Sudan, in Kenya, in wherever it is, then Palestine is at the moment is getting much more light because of the dimension that it's being debated. But we still have like other struggles everywhere else. I would hope that we don't see this. I think it's about capitalism, colonialism. Those structures need to be demolished, and that's the answer. Whether it's doable or not, I really don't have an answer.
Just to go back to something you said. You said Palestinians are the new blacks. They are African Palestinians.
Yeah.
How are they coping?
The same, I guess. I don't think they differentiate. I mean, when I was brought up throughout the period, or when I was still living in Palestine, post-Oslo, we're talking, I think that was the biggest illusion, where we thought there is peace and quiet back then. And apparently that was the period when Israel has really managed to bring in much more extremists, settler colonials to occupy the land, where the Arab world kind of like took a step back and thought it's all peace and love. And that's what brought up Israel nowadays to be really this extreme and this fanatic and this aggressive. I don't think they differentiate at the moment, because even the divide and conquer approach that they used before, now they don't need to divide. The aim is only to conquer. So there is no difference between color, no difference between religion. Like even before, they kind of treated the Christian Arabs better than Muslims, telling them that, oh, you're much more liberated, much more free. And those games are already exposed. So they're just addressing and targeting Palestinians everywhere. I can't visit home. My family has blocked me throughout after the 7th of October on social media platforms, only because I was posting political posts. And they were that scared that they would be haunted and expelled and targeted by the police, where they had to block me for 2-3 weeks until it was really quiet. I had my flight also canceled. It was 2 days after the 7th of October. I lost loads of money. And up till now, it's almost 2 years that I haven't seen my family. So the pain is not just physical. They're killing everything, and not just physically killing people. They are killing our spirit, psychologically and emotionally.
How can other artists around the world, how would you like to see the art world or artists in general support Palestinians?
By allowing us to speak, because it's not allowed anymore even to express your pain. There are lots of artists being cancelled, and shows are being cancelled, and most of my friends are in the music scene and the art scene, and it's really messy out there. We can't say anything. It's impossible to work. So most of the people are really either working in demonstrations or having to really choose a platform where it's really pro-Palestinian. And I really, I'm sorry, but I'm not even going to try to answer this question, because it's very tough. And as I said before, I see art being as activism, because I personally lost hope in the art institution. Because mind you, like before, it was even hard to address those issues, and now even more, that as a Palestinian artist, you really have to fund yourself, because any institution will mostly tell you what they accept and what they wouldn't accept, and how you need to adjust constantly to their demands and terms, and it's very tough. So the art sector is almost dying, where from my side, and that's why I addressed more activism than art, because it's either commercial, where they want to see different things, and if you really want to show what is happening, you have no stage.
Well, what is happening in activist spaces in Berlin, where you are, around Palestinian issues and the arts?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm at the wrong spot at the wrong time. It's very tough in here. We have this law that forces people to recognize Israel as a state if they want the German passport. People were signing petitions and objecting, but it's not working. You find calls for foreigners out of lots of people shouting foreigners out. They really want to take migrants towards the migrants out of Germany. This is the common thing at the moment. I personally had an experience where I applied for various festivals and conferences, and because the institution itself found it hard to accept me, I had curators funding me separate from the institution, to allow me to speak. So this is another way to survive. I have twice this month where my proposal got accepted away from the main theme, where they told me, we can't take you on board, but we can fund you individually.
Why do you think it's like this? Why do you think the German state is conducting itself the way it is doing towards Palestinians?
It's guilt feelings, but I think the German state likes to be on the wrong side of history, regardless of who is targeting whom. It's a history proving itself again. It has nothing to be with Semitic, anti-Semitic or Semitic, or they just support violence, I believe. This government is completely fascist, and Berlin especially is becoming a police state. You can't say anything without being targeted by the police. It's very scary to walk out there. There is loads of racism. I lived in England for 20 years, and I almost never tackle any discrimination on a personal level. And I'm a white passing woman, like I don't look like a Palestinian, but it just still happens to me.
What would you like to see how would you like to see the German state respond?
The normal reaction against killing at any level. Again, killing children shouldn't be allowed, regardless. And we are not talking about two different states here. Hamas is not a state. And if they keep addressing Hamas the way they're addressing it now, it will keep existing, because those people have nothing to care for anymore. No food, no electricity, nothing. They will all become Hamas at the end. They will all resist, whether we want it or we don't want it. And us, as I have been watching those videos every day, and I have to really suppress my anger and really push myself not to really be angry and violent. And it takes loads of effort and energy every day on daily basis to really work on yourself and have hope again, and you lose it and then you work towards it, and because that's the only way to survive. You have to have hope, otherwise life is not worth living.
I'm also aware that what Germany is doing, a number of other countries in the West are doing the same. Britain is doing the same, suppressing pro-Palestine protests. The US is doing the same. And I think Canada might also be doing the same. And yeah. So this is, it seems to me that this is a Western it's something to do with how the West sees Palestinians and the state of Israel. How do we get back to normal?
We get back to normal by addressing Israel as less godly than they are addressing it. Israel is becoming the new God, and it has to do with colonialism and apartheid. Israel is structured of people coming from Germany, Poland, and they are the people in high positions in this pyramid and up there in the hierarchy. People coming from Iran, Algeria, Egypt are the people serving in the army and just shooting because they have this complex of not wanting to look like an Arab. So they're just shooting. It's a very sick psychological game played in here. And it's all colonialism and capitalism playing all together. And the key is, I think also this game is being much more exposed now because the media has been exposing much more of the truth. People are being able to see what's happening and react to what's happening. And Israel no longer controls the media, but even despite all of that, they really don't care. Israel has been killing UN, UNRWA, doctors, children, women, whatever, animals, they kill anything. They don't really care. And now they are threatening to start bombing Lebanon. And it goes on and on and on. I think the responsibility here lies in Europe. And by interfering and telling Israel that they are selling less weapon, obviously, all this arm trade that is still being sold to Israel and financing Israel. All of this has to stop.
How do we get it to stop?
By selling less weapon, it's obvious. Weapon trade is really the main reason, and Germany and the USA mainly, they are the biggest providers. They need to be pressurized to stop. Obviously, also demonstrations are. We here in Berlin, every second day we have a massive demonstration, and people keep going to the street, but it got normalized. So I think high up there in the government, they see those. It's like unleashing the dogs. You can bark as much as you want, but then we have the chain around your neck. Once you bark too much, we can still pull you back. And that's how it feels. So again, I have no answer. The only answer at this stage is hope. And we keep doing what we're doing, but I personally also am speechless. I don't see where it's heading. I mean, obviously, they're stopping weapon trades shipments and, for example, PAL actions and vandalism and going through Albite system and all those systems and weapon deals and vandalizing the places is working because it disturbs the planned deal. I personally see this much more working than demonstrating, for example. But from my own view, I can do what I do best. And my contribution to this revolution is in art, because that's what I master, and that's where I have my expertise, and that's where I can touch other people and get touched by them, and find the common ground for our bodies and hearts to connect, and work on myself to heal the pain inside me, and also watch others go through the same ritual or mechanism. And I think this is the answer, is to accept the pain that Palestinians are having, and to be able to let them express it, and mourn their death, and treat the Palestinian death as not just numbers.
I'm also thinking that in addition to the protests and also the direct action, thinking of what happened with apartheid South Africa, boycotts and sanctions.
Yes, I forgot the boycott also. It's a very important tool, because it actually works, and it is working, because those movements are getting stronger, despite the fact, like, for example, here in Germany, it's not, it's like defined now as a terror organization or group also. So they are limiting the BDS because it has proven itself to be functioning on various levels. Most of the people I know are boycotting most of the Israeli merchandise. Yeah.
And what do you think of how students around the world are responding to the genocide?
This is also another aspect. I think it's very important to follow what they're like, a very important act, what the students are doing, despite the fact that in Berlin, for example, they didn't allow them to stay like at all. They really tackled it quickly and with loads of violence. The German police has been arresting like 6 years old kids and babies, and also demonstrations themselves are becoming very theatrical. We have like each demonstrations we take part in, there is this Israeli woman accompanied by 25 policemen to guard her and protect her inside the Palestinian demonstration. So it's all becoming like a big one-staged theater play. And it's all about triggering the protesters and triggering much more violence in order to use violence as a reaction.
How about academics? What do you see happening around academics?
The same. Loads of Palestinian or academics who voice themselves with the Palestinian struggle are being targeted. We still have academics who really voice themselves. I think the main key in the academia and the main respect or main focus group is Jewish or Israeli academics who are going against Israel. And I personally think that's where the strength is lying, like under those categories, because the more Jewish people oppose or critique the Zionist entity or the Zionist regime, the stronger it will become, because when it's coming from inside, it has much greater effect. So I think that's one of the positive sides of this revolution in general, that, for example, Jewish Voices for Peace, we have loads of the Jewish movements that is going against Israel. And also, like, most of the books written about the Israeli apartheid regime is written by Jewish academics like Ilan Haq. And so those are really strong sides of like activism, and how do we find a stage to talk about the Palestinian struggle.
How about the universities themselves? What do you see happening with universities? And this is universities as institutions.
I think I have a personal problem with the universities and institutions in general, also with the artistic spaces and galleries, that the white, usually white people take over the, like, the topic and kind of address it in a different, like, for example, funds. When there are funds out there, they usually, you have to talk about the topic, but once you really talk about it deep or address the main concern, they reject the proposal because it's too political. So there is my problem with academia and artistic institutions, that it's monitored, like it doesn't give the real freedom of speech now. Or at least that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I can't talk for others. I can talk of my own reflection.
How about the support that universities are lending? Let's say universities in the West are lending to.
There are universities that cut ties with Israel, and that's also a positive side. But those are few universities. We can't say it's a big wave of change, but it's still a change, and it's still a step towards change. So we need to see more of this.
Yeah. And there's also how universities are implicated, are involved in the military industrial complex, internationally and also in Israel.
It's all connected. It's all connected, and I think change has to happen everywhere. Like students, with the art institutions, with the academia, with on the ground. I think each one of us has a different way to tackle this, and I think we, as people, we work better when everybody does what they can do best. And I think the change happens when we find what we are good at and then provide our skills. And that's how change happens. Education. We are far away from educating people. All the money is being invested in the wrong means for the wrong people. We are really away from educating our children, for investing money in schools and institutions, and all the money is going in completely different places. And my hope is to see this happening, because the way I see it, education is really important. And yeah, unfortunately, history keeps repeating itself, and I don't know how does this cycle stop, because capitalism always finds a hole and keeps going through it again and stepping into a different form.
And also thinking of history and the histories of Latin American and also African liberation struggles, and those on the Indian subcontinent. Trade unions played a very important role in that struggle. What role do you see trade unions playing in the current genocide that is taking place in Israel, in Palestine, in Gaza?
I think they really need to, I mean, some trade unions have already took a decision to boycott or move Israel away. But also, as I said, it's not much. Also, with this fascism that is going all over Europe is also not helping, because we see that elections are people are choosing wrong leaders and wrong parties, and this will not help this will not put an end to the struggle. And I'm not just talking about Palestine. I think there, in that region, in the Middle East, there is a much stronger conflict, because it's a very important route. And I think if it wasn't for the gas that Israel wants to explore in Gaza, or this would not have happened already. Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question before we close? If you'd like to ask a question, if you unmute yourself, you can put your question to Maida. Yes, Karen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your work and your courage in speaking out. And for sharing the process that you moved through of learning about yourself as your work evolved to where it is right now. I had just a basic question about participants in your work, actors, actresses. Was there a process to explore with them how the experience affected them, how they saw themselves and personal change? And do you see this as a key component of your current work? And how can that sort of learning contribute? How do you think it contributes to the change in attitudes and maybe even the politics and the motivation of people in outward from your audiences?
I think it's an important question, but I would like to begin by saying that my participants are not mainly performers. So usually when I put the call out, I get people who are from the performance sector, artists, but those are less. So the main targeted group is people with no artistic backgrounds. And I think that's where the change happens, because I kind of facilitate this tool. I use the performers as side helper, or I give them a bit much more stronger, or for example, to be a link point throughout the performance, or where people have to follow them. So I kind of use their skills, but also to lift the entire group up and to lift the entire performance up. The people without artistic background, usually the whole method gives them the chance to express with different means. So instead of using language, they are exposed to using body as a language, or movements in space to express their pain. So this is already a different approach from the one they're used to. I think most of the like when we finish a project, most of the critique or the comments that I get after from participants who have no artistic experience is that it really gave them a different voice, that they have now experienced a different way to talk about themselves or show their pain or deal with it, or in a different platform where they don't feel exposed. So this anonymity also allows the participants to be much more open and free. And I think that's what they can take out. And that's what I really want them to take out, is to know that there is always an alternative from the traditional therapy that they can really address and take with them home. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah, I would think that even in events like demonstrations, to have theater there that serves that kind of function, whether it's about Kenya, whether it's about Palestine, or just about militarism in general. Some kind of art form, whether it's song or whether it's plays or enactments, it just opens a different avenue to feel and experience and know yourself,
yeah.
what you're feeling. Thank you so much for your work and for sharing. This is very important, I think.
Thank you very much.
May not be as effective as a general strike. Those two words seem to, in the history of the United States, bring such terror to the government that we've gotten things like the Civil Rights Act out of it. And back into the 1910s, 1930s, those two words seem to have triggered major political change. So I think we need to start using those two words a little bit more.
I think that's where the help of the West needs to come through. Actually, it's a very important point, because I think the Palestinians lack on a lobby. We don't have a strong leadership. So this is kind of like a lost ground. So I think, yeah, this would be a really important way to tackle it in the future.
And also, Karen, I'm surprised why trade unions in the West, especially, are not calling for a general strike.
They're at least coming out in favor of a ceasefire, but as you know, politics is complicated. I guess the United Auto Workers was one of the first very large and pervasive unions to come out against what's going on in Gaza. But there's deals, in the background with this transition to electric cars and all of that environment stuff that make them hesitate. But maybe we need their families to advocate to the union members more. I don't think many kids are excited about having kids in other parts of the world getting killed. And maybe that's the audience to speak to. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not only general strike. It's also about the calls for embargoes, arms embargoes. I'm not seeing trade unions around the world engaging with those calls in the same way that they did with South Africa, for example, or even with Russia a couple of years ago.
worth considering in dramatic options during demonstrations. What happens when we cut off the supply of corn to the rest of the world, supply of timber? That, you know, I don't know. Maybe other people have other ideas. Hopefully they'll share.
Is there, thank you, Karen, thank you. Is there anyone who has another question or comment? If you do, if you unmute.
I think she left the fourth participant. She had to leave. She wrote on the group.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Do you want to answer the question? It's a compliment and a thank you. Sibian says, thank you so much for sharing such important work. It has been hugely inspirational.
Yeah.
Yeah, I share Sibian's
Thank
comments.
you for giving me the platform to present my work and to talk about my art as a Palestinian voice. And
yeah, thank you. And before we end, are there, in all that we have said, I will just ask a couple of final questions. In all that we have said, is there anything that you'd like to add or emphasize?
hope and hope and hope. It's very hard, becoming very hard to have hope. Yeah, so it's very tough to wake up every day and look at the amount of blood, and I think I have nothing to say.
How do we nurture that hope?
By being kind to each others and to our circle, and do what we can do to bring love back to the picture.
And this will be my final question, and we end on this note. What are your hopes, if you don't mind?
I hope that my family stays safe. And the funny bit is that, like, throughout the Iranian attack on Israel, I was watching live the bombs going through the skies of Haifa, and my family was asleep. Because I think living under this constant war or genocide, or it gets normalized at the end of the day. And my hope and my wish that this would never happen, because it's very surreal and very inhumane to normalize killing. So yeah, being kind to each other's, listening to each other's, and accepting our anger also as Palestinians. And that's very important. And not being called angry or not being called violent when you voice your opinion against the current mainstream opinion. That's also very important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, mate. So,
Karen, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So this has been this conversation has been part of a series that Forced Migration in the Arts put together to mark World Refugee Day, which was on June 20. But in the week leading up to June 20, there was also Refugee Week. And as forced migration in the arts, we thought, okay, so why not make the whole of June Refugee Month? So we organized 3 sessions which took place on a Thursday of each week, except the Thursday in which, except June 20 itself, which was on a Thursday again. And again, why we did this is also tied to what forced migration in the arts does, in that we are a network that brings together people with lived experience of forced migration, and we have an interest in the work that refugees and non-refugees are doing at the intersection where forced migration and the arts meet. The indabas, the conferences, the sessions are open. They are going to run for as long as there are people willing to speak. And the reason why we do this again is because forced migration, the factors that are causing forced migration are not going to get any less. They are increasing. More people are being displaced every year, and this is likely to increase. And at the same time, the people who are being displaced by these wars and conflicts and climate change and extreme poverty that is caused by capitalism are living really, really abject lives, stripped of humanity and at the receiving end of extreme violence. We're hoping that through these conversations, we can change that and see the humanity in each other. So on this note of hope, I say thank you and see you again on the last Thursday of next month, July. Thank you very much. And have a good evening or good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you, Dr. Abbott.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.